going to have a public hearing tonight on a bond. The Goffstown School District is bringing forward 2 warrant articles for 4 projects. Those projects will each have, the 2 warrant articles will have 2 bonds, depending on what warrants are passed. Hopefully all 2 warrants with the 4 projects pass, but if they don't, we have different options and different ways to look at it. I'm going to do an overview of the 4 projects so people have an idea of what we're looking at and what we're doing. And then Ray's going to talk about the actual bond and interest rates and different opportunities and options we would have. The 4 projects that we have on slate, 2 of them, which are on one warrant article, are for both of our elementary schools for renovations and additions to both elementary schools. In 2008, the elementary school, there was an elementary school committee developed to look at all of our options of what to do about the overcrowding and the need for renovations at our elementary school. At that point in time, the committee reviewed many options. I think there were about 8 or 9 of them, looking at anything from building onto Glen Lake to revamping and changing one school to a K-2, one to a 3-4, one to different grade levels. We looked at all different options. The best option that the committee came out with was, and for the best price, was to add on and to renovate both Maple Ave and Bartlett Elementary School. In the meantime, what we have also done is that committee then transformed into our elementary facilities committee. We were given at our last year's budget hearing, and through the ballot was money from lost the word, Ray, help me, where do we get the money from?
Impact
From
fees.
the impact fees.
Right.
To be able to do the architectural and engineering studies for both elementary schools. So over this past year, we've been working diligently with CMK architectural firm. They have worked on some drawings for us and the entire specs for the project. So if this project passes in March, we are ready to go out to bid. We have right up to bid documents for both the elementary school projects. What we are doing, and you can see here we have some drawings at Bartlett Elementary School. What we are looking to do is actually keep the new addition that we added in the front wing. We are looking to tear down the 1922 section of the building. How we got to that term was the fact that the building itself has tiny classrooms. They're under 700 square feet. Standards now are over 900 square feet, so the classrooms are very tiny. The hallways are wide. It's a fairly dysfunctional section of the building in the sense of you have to walk upstairs, downstairs, and around stairs to get downstairs. And so we thought it was advantageous to be able to tear that building down and restructure it to provide more consistent and better classroom space. We know that building means a lot to a lot of people, so we're looking to do find some ways to be able to save some of the architectural pieces of that building, maybe some of the bricks and things like that, and reintegrate them in. But we know that that area just doesn't work now in 21st century learning. There's not technology to build the wiring in is an issue. Air quality is an issue, and so we are looking to do that. So what this allows us to do is actually take the space, revamp it, provide 10 more classrooms, a library space, space for art and music, space for all of our related services, space for special education, and in fact, it doesn't take up much more space than what we're already using. So if you look here, it would be a 2-floor. What's in white is will currently stay. What is in gray will be the new section. So the current section actually goes out to about here. And so this is new, and then this piece will be new. We're also adding on a kitchen onto the back. And what that will provide is for a functional kitchen area for the school. Right now, the kitchen line is actually in the gym. We have refrigerators and freezers within the gym, so it's a safety issue when we have classes in there. And so this will provide a line within the kitchen for students to go in and out of, and really make that a nicer area for our students. So that's Bartlett. Maple Avenue, there's actually 2 components to this project. This will allow for a main office entrance that we don't currently have. If you go to Maple Ave, you could probably guess that there's 1 of 3 different main entries. And I think at some different points in time, those were 3 different main entrances. So we would be looking over by the gym area, which you can see in this drawing and this drawing, looking at putting in a main office area that would house the principal, the assistant principal, the nurse, and the guidance counselor. And that way everybody is kind of in the same area. Right now the principal's in one end of the building, the assistant principal's in the other end of the building, the nurse is downstairs, and the guidance is on the other side. It also provides for a really clearly identified front main entrance. Off of the back of the building, which again you can see, this is the front. Off the back of the building will be a 3-story building. So the first story is a little bit below grade, then the second story and the third story. That will again provide for 10 classrooms. Additional space for a smart room, for technology, space for special education, space for art and music. In both of our schools right now, we are out of space. We have art and music are on a cart, special ed's in small classrooms. At Maple Ave, we've converted every bathroom into conference rooms just about. So some of those things will be coming back. So we'll be able to replace conference rooms back to bathrooms because we'll have new conference spaces. So what this allows us to do is it provides us the opportunity to provide good spaces for our students within, classroom spaces. Right now, for example, if you go to the old section of Bartlett, putting 22 kids in those classrooms is tight because they're so small. With a new functional space, 22 kids will have space to learn and grow. So this will bring us the next 20 years. This should sustain us with some growth, with giving us provided space. We're not anticipating more growth, but what this will do is free up spaces we don't currently have. For example, at Bartlett, we have now used up, there is not another space. We've now taken over, the teachers had a teacher's room and a work room for about a month or so. We took that away, so the teachers now have to eat lunch in their classroom because we are now using that for another classroom. So we are just out of space. So that's what we're looking to do for the 2 elementary schools. The total project cost for both of those is, the Bartlett project comes in at $6,987,907 approximately. Those are estimates we've gotten through this project from the architect going out to bid on different items. The Maple Ave project is $8,072,692. We do have $344,970 in a reserve account that has been put away for Bartlett. In the past several years, we put warrant articles on to put money away. That was money that had been appropriated several years ago that is in an account that we would be able to use for this project. So at this point, for this project, the bond we would be looking at is $15,060,599. This will get us 2 elementary schools that are in top-notch shape. One of the things we also will be doing is renovating the current spaces so that places where we have asbestos will be abating that. We'll be putting some new flooring in at Bartlett, some new ceiling tiles. We'll be fixing air quality, putting in new ventilation systems in the older sections of both buildings, which they have none. So when we have hot afternoons in May and June, we'll have actually some ventilation going through those schools, which we have none of now. So those are those 2 projects. The other 2 projects have to do with the high school. One is creating an athletic complex here at the high school. As many of you know, right now our track and field practices at Barnard Park, which is a facility that is, I would say, subpar. If you've never been over there, take a walk. The track is falling apart. There's cracks. It is not a functional spot or location for us to be able to do track meets at. Because it's not up to par, there's no parking. And so the CAST committee, which is a committee here at the high school that works for, helps to assist us in looking at our athletic and co-curricular facilities as well as activities, helps us support that. They have actually paid to have studies done. And so they had a comprehensive study done about what we should do, taking into account all of the athletic fields in the area, how we should do it, how we should function with it. And the recommendation from that committee was that we should build a complex here at the high school. That if we're going to invest money, we should make sure we're investing in our facilities, make sure it's a kind of a one-stop fits all. And so what we're looking to do is to take the football field and wrap a track and field around it, put turf down, put lighting down, and allow for opportunities for stadium seating on the other side. So seating would move to the other side. What this allows us to do is have multiple opportunities. Do you have a picture? What this allows us to do is have multiple opportunities to have practices and games. Right now, because the track is a grass field, the football field is a grass field, we can only actually have a football game there. We can't practice on that field. It limits us with turf. We'll actually be able to have multiple practices on a given day. With lights, it adds on that. The additional thing with lights is that it provides opportunities for this community to get together. If you weren't at it, in I think it was October, the football booster club provided the Grizzlies provided us with lights. They rented lights and provided a Friday night home game. There were thousands of people there. There were graduates there. There were community members there. And so again, it's another opportunity to provide recreation for our community and an opportunity for people to get out and be together. And what a great thing that is for us. So again, another opportunity for lights at that. So that is, we're looking at $2,278,580 for that project. The last project is the theater renovation. The theater was done, last time it was renovated was in 1990. When we did the renovations of the high school, the theater was not renovated. And so we're looking to put new seating in. If you have been to a wonderful theater performance over there, they do a great job. Unfortunately, a lot of the seats are broken. We don't need ADA handicapped if you've been there. Handicapped accessibility means we just took out some front row chairs. And so it would allow and provide for ADA handicap, new seating, new lights, and new sound. The other piece of the puzzle would be adding a small addition onto the back where we used to have a trailer that we were able to store materials in. Several years ago during the ice storm, that trailer was crashed in. And so we had to get rid of that. We now have 2 portable storage trailers out back that house all of the materials and supplies for the theater and the drama department. What this will allow us to do is to put on an addition that will provide for storage as well as a workshop. We don't have a place to build sets right now. This will provide that opportunity. We build sets in the hallways, we build sets in the theater, in the classrooms, wherever we can find space. And so this will provide an opportunity for students to have an actual workshop area that meets fire safety codes, a place to store things that are not in the hallways, blocking fire doors and things like that. So again, it's an opportunity to enhance and build upon what is likely falling apart and falling down. If you haven't been to the theater, the chairs are, you sit in the chairs and they move and they wiggle. We fix them. They no longer make those chairs, so the parts are more and more scarce to be able to put them together. Our custodians do a great job of trying to fix them, but at some point it's just not going to be possible. The theater project is a total of $531,000. That also includes the architectural fees because we haven't moved that project as forward as we have these other projects, so we still need to do the drawing and the design for the actual addition piece, so that would include those costs as well. What is coming around, I believe, is some pictures of the track that CAST has done, so you can take a look at those, what that would look like. So that's kind of an overview of the projects. I'm going to ask Ray now to speak about the actual bond, different options we have, because as you know, they're going to be on 2 warrant articles on the ballot. And so if one passes and one doesn't, if both pass, we have different options of looking at bonds, whether they're together or separate. So I'm going to turn it over to Ray to talk about that.
Thank you, Stacy. Does everybody have a copy of the handouts that we had put here? Should send these around, if you would, Chuck. Thank you.
Yep.
Do you have a picture of the athletic?
I believe they're coming around.
I'm going to keep it.
That's okay. I can help. But you're taking
Yes.
Okay, everybody set? We're going to talk about this particular sheet. It's the an overview of the 2 bonds that Stacy just talked about and the financing for the projects that she reviewed with you. The Goffstown School Board did vote to proceed with 2 individual bonds and grouping the projects pretty much as Stacy had described them to you. We do have the elementary activity, and we do have a separate initiative for what's going on at the high school facility. So the elementary project, again, as indicated a little bit earlier, was tagged at $15 million, round numbers. The high school project tagged at $2.8 million in total. So we've actually got 4 individual projects bundled inside of these 2 bond articles. For the elementary facility, we went in, got some quotations from the New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank for a 20-year bond, which is consistent with what the school district has done in the past for major construction efforts. For the high school activity, we did get schedules for 10 years and 15 years for bond life. What we're sharing with you this evening for cost detail is a 15-year schedule. We went through Divine Millmet for our bond counsel fees. These are the charges that we could expect to see here at the school district for the legal opinion and the research required for the district to issue bonds for this kind of construction. So we're kind of comfortable that the 2 number sets that we're putting in front of you this evening will give you a pretty fair representation of what we could all expect to see should they pass. The only other comment that I really have is on Divine Millmet. They represented the school district just about a year ago when we did go up and issue refunding bonds for the high school renovation that was completed in 2001. They're a very conscientious group and very easy to work with. That's why we went with them again and asking for assistance for this go around. So again, numbers pretty much are self-explanatory, I hope. You'll see the amount of the 2 bonds for the total financing package of $17,800,000. The interest charges associated with the 20-year bond would be $6.754 million, and that would be at a rate of 4.25%, which would bring the total payback, the total debt service on the elementary bond to $21.8 million. For the high school project, because it is a shorter period, we would be looking at an interest rate of 3.75% for that note, which would result in $845,000 worth of interest expense and a total payback amount of $3.7 million. Now, those are the charges if we were to process these bonds individually. You'll see a total line underneath that, and that would represent bundling both projects together should we be successful with both bond articles. So our total package, for example, would be $17.8 million worth of bonds. We'd have $7.6 million worth of interest expense, and it would be a total debt service arrangement of $25.5 million after a 20-year period. The way we can structure this thing, I'll take questions when we finish.
So if you did the total package, does the interest rate, I know one's 4.25.
Yeah, I'm going to caution everybody on interest rates right now. We won't know what they are until we actually get out there and negotiate
Do you
with
get a
suppliers.
better interest rate the larger, like you said, the total package if you had them both?
Again, it's dependent upon the time period that we would be dealing with. Right now, if we were to get the go-ahead from district voters, interest rates are low. And we're going to talk a little bit about construction activity. Those costs are very, very low at this point too. There's a lot of businesses that are looking for work, plain and simple. But again, in actuality, at the time we get the go-ahead, we would obviously go out and try to negotiate for the best arrangement, financing arrangement that we could secure for the school district. Okay. Associated, in addition to interest charges, there are other fees that are going to be associated with each of these bonds. And what we're trying to give you here is a quick look at what the New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank, if we chose to go through them, would charge the school district for an issue fee on the bond. Christie, to get back to your point, this is where we can start seeing some economies of scale. If we were, as an example, to proceed with the elementary bond alone, the bond bank would charge us $20,000 in issue costs and fees to get that out there. If we were to go with the high school bond alone, they would charge us $15,000. Yet, if we're able to bundle the both of them, the issue cost would be $20,000. We'd save $15,000.
Right.
Same sort of thing goes on with the bond counsel charge. Again, with all of the legal work and legal opinions, a single bond issue for the elementary school would cost approximately $9,000. The same kind of thing, even though the bond value is much smaller. For the high school project, same cost, we'd be looking at a total of $18,000 if they were issued individually. Combining them, $9,000. So there are some economies of scale there. The final set of calculations on this sheet is the school district's estimate as to what the potential tax rate impact would be if we were to be successful with the votes in March. For year one, we would be looking at debt service only, which would be an interest charge that would be assessed on the bond, which would become payable probably in the January 2013 timeframe. That would amount to about $365,000, and our estimate would be about 27 cents on the tax rate for year one. If the high school bond were to pass, and it would stand alone, we'd be looking at an interest charge, again, with the same methodology, probably payable in January of 2013, of $59.7K. That would result in about 4 cents on the rate. Both of them pass, it would be about 31 cents on the year one rate. Subsequent years, those are the years that we would then begin paying on principal as well as interest. It obviously goes up a bit higher. Year two is what I tried to present here. The total debt service for the elementary school, which would be a principal payment and 2 interest payments to the bondholders. We total about $1.4 million, and that would result in about $1.04 on the tax rate. If we did high school only, the year two charge for principal and interest would be about $291,000. That would result in a 22-cent impact on the tax rate. We put both together, if both articles pass, our estimate would be $1.26 on the tax rate for year two. It's difficult to predict what would happen after that. We would have decreasing values in the interest payments that we're making, but principal payments would remain constant. So what we would expect to see would be a gradually reduced bond and interest or debt service charge for the out years. Like this note. The other sheet that you hopefully have picked up is nothing more than a schedule of what the debt and interest payments would be over the life of the elementary bond. It stands alone, you'll see a $15 million total on that. The second sheet is the debt schedule for the high school bond on a standalone basis. That starts off at $2.8 million and it ranges over 15 years. So this will kind of give you a feel for what the debt service would be for the life of both bonds, individually or combined, for the next 20 years if we're successful.
So just to be clear, you know, so when you're talking, like if they both have passed, $1.26 per thousand, right? That's just so people that don't.
It'd be we would be looking at a total debt service of just under $1.7 million, and our estimate would be $1.26 on the rate to address that debt service amount.
So I would like to add, thank you, Ray, is that we understand these are not easy times. We understand that it's tough, it's tight, the economy still isn't great. One of the things we have to recognize, though, is that our buildings are not getting better. If you've walked into our elementary schools, they are not improving, they are crowded. In fact, tonight there's a planning board meeting looking to approve 48 apartment buildings over by Bartlett. If that passes and those are built, perhaps even if they're not passed, we may be looking at additional portables at our schools. Again, we are out of space. There's not an ounce to move kids around anywhere. And so now is the time. Interest rates are low. We have no space. People are dying to do construction projects. We have actually moved into the next phase of this project, the elementary schools, which is to get bids for construction management services. Should this pass, we will be ready to go. We received 9 bids for these services. They closed today, so we know we have 9 of them. We'll be meeting as a committee to review those and bring to the school board our proposal for who that company would be to build these projects. But we know construction companies are hungry right now. We got an exceptional deal on the architectural fees and the firms because of that same reason. We started out with bids of $900,000 to do these projects. We paid just a little over $300,000. So we got a really good deal on those. People are hungry for projects. Now is the time if we want to save money. I think as time goes on, prices are going to increase. And so, while I know it is difficult, we can't continue with these facilities. We need to think about them. We need to think about the infrastructure for our community to ensure that kids have good spaces to learn and that these buildings can take us into the future. 10 years from now, these buildings are going to be in really sad shape if we don't do something with them. And so we're here, to provide information to the public about what those 2 warrant articles will look like and why it's important to support them in the notion of helping educate our students in good facilities and providing appropriate resources for them. So I guess at this point we can open it up for questions or answers. Okay.
So I just got a question about the impact fees. I think you did the study with the impact fees.
Correct.
Is there any leftover impact fees that we can appropriate for this?
I don't know that there may be, it's
There
probably
is-
small dollars.
It's a small amount, it's under $100,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then can you just explain with the Mountain View bond being finished, being paid for, how that would affect, or does that affect our
Yes.
tax rate now?
Yeah, we're seeing a reduction in the tax rate now. Had we been able to dovetail this project with the payoff of the Mountain View Maple bond,
Which happened last year.
which, happened in August 2011, we would have seen pretty much no change at all in debt service. It'd just be a continuation at the
Right.
same level. So
Okay.
we're seeing a bit of a dip, and it'll come back up again as a result of this.
So I think people gotta get that information now.
Yeah.
Mountain View's paid for, that's.
Yeah,
part
that's
of
gone.
it.
Yeah. Brilliant question.
Sure, I agree with you about the economy. Of course, you've heard me say that many times. But I also know something has to be done. And everybody knows I'm pretty cheap, so I understand, right? So the way I'm looking at this is, again, as a taxpayer, but because of what I do for them, I'm trying to figure out how I sell it to the cheaper people of the community, okay? Because I'm one of them.
I think it's an investment in our community, because my fear is that if we wait too long, our buildings it's going to cost us more to fix our buildings, and we're gonna have more problems, you know?
Right, and I agree.
But I understand it is hard,
You know, construction costs and engineering costs are at all time low. I work for an engineering company, so I know exactly what you're saying, and you bring up some really good points about that. But we still have a crappy economy, a lot of people, consumer confidence is very low, so that's what we're battling. So some of my questions are around how we attack this and get people to climb on board. One of the things is what you said, is the fact that the net, if you were used to paying that debt service at middle school, you know,
Yeah.
middle
It's a
school
swap out.
is, you know, yes, it is this, but the net effect, you know, factoring that in and presenting that in a way that says, oh, okay, so it's not that much different. Is trying to package this and, dare I say, sell it to people, sell it in a way that, yes, it's gonna be more out of your pocket, but it's palatable.
Yeah, almost like a budget plan.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yeah, exactly.
You know what's coming.
But my question is on this whole debt service thing, and I know you have different financing options, so I'm gonna ask you a bunch of questions about that, because we talked about the muni bond bank, that's one. But there's other traditional methods you're considering, is that right? Or going to shop around with?
We certainly are going to shop the business around if we do get the article passed. And as an example, we did go through an outfit called First Southwest Services when we issued the refunding bonds. That was not the New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank. And this particular consortium was able to provide us with a very attractive interest rate package, which is going to save the school district $580,000 over the remaining 10 years of that particular bond. New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank is safe, but they go out and they sell bonds twice a year. I definitely build to I think the point you're trying to get at is there are other competitive providers that are out there, and we will certainly take advantage of that environment.
In terms of the building itself, because I know, you know, the Bartlett thing is essentially deconstructing before you construct. And that's extremely disruptive to the learning environment. So have you thought about phasing to the point
Yeah.
where you literally bus people over to Maple and?
We are looking to do this the elementary school project's in a 2-phase. We would be looking to do Maple Lab first, because what that would provide is I will not say extra space, but it will provide more classrooms. What we would do is have Bartlett students go to Maple Lab for the 1 year while they're tearing down and rebuilding Bartlett. It would likely be, if it wasn't, they would try to get most of the main construction done over the summer, and we would hopefully be able to continue, because we couldn't fit all of Bartlett at Maple, have some grade levels in the front wing at Bartlett, and then bus the rest of them to Maple Lab, use that new space, and then the following year when Bartlett was completed, shift them back. And so that would provide opportunities without having to bring in portable trailer, portable classrooms. We talked about different options. We could bring in, 6 portable classrooms here at the high school, which is about the only place that has space. We didn't think that was functional, and so we came up with a 2-phase plan, because it will work for students. It provides them an opportunity to still be at an elementary school. We also know that Bartlett and Maple students get together in 5th grade, so it's also another opportunity for them to be together. It would be a natural progression. So yeah, we did consider that.
Does that include potentially moving the Bartlett trailers over to
Yeah,
help out with the space?
part of this project that's included in the phases, taking both portables, the one at Bartlett and the one at Maple, repurposing them here at the high school, using them for our alternative education program, which we currently pay rent on. So that's a cost savings of about $25,000 a year. We pay rent, we have a classroom space at Northeast Sheet Metal, over downtown that we rent. And so we would be able to bring those here to the high school, repurpose them for those classrooms. So that's an overall cost savings.
So it's gonna be a bond no matter what, the financing, it's gonna be some sort of bond, is that correct?
It would have to be at this level, yeah.
And
Yeah.
so the vote needs to be
Two-thirds.
Did you guys have on there 3/5?
It needs to be
What's-
actually 3/5. So it would be a 60% of the majority.
Well, first of all, I commend you for attacking this, having been, as you well know, intimately involved with the 5 schools here. That's why I've got white hair. It's his
I'm getting
fault.
there.
But my point is this, I belong to the Lions Club, and in fact, I'm in charge of our Lions Complex, which is a multi-million, well, now million-plus complex. We just approved a 7,000 to 10,000, which, you know, that's not much money for you. It's a heck of a lot less than the state, but anyway. And we would not want to go forward with that if you're going to not let your people play in our fields. In other words, you pay us $5,000 a year to, which is very cheap, but to use the fields.
I believe those fields would still be used because that's baseball, and we don't, this would not meet baseball's needs. This would not change baseball.
Plus I think that the turf field is gonna be strictly probably more for games. Because
Yeah.
there's a lot of teams here that don't, there's a lot of teams that don't have any practice space anyways.
Yeah, I
So
know
that's
that.
still gonna be,
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Still
facility would still be definitely used for baseball.
So that would, we would continue with that.
Absolutely.
We don't want to spend thousands
I understand that, yeah.
$10,000 is
That's a lot of money for the
of money
Lions.
for us.
Yeah.
We just spent $8,500 for new warm-ups and all that. I
Yeah.
didn't want to bring it to our board next week and say, look, forget about that, you know?
Yeah, no, I don't see that changing because it's a different field. It's a rectangle field versus a baseball diamond.
A lot of
A lot of popcorn.
A lot of craft fairs. No, but it is a big thing for us.
Absolutely, absolutely. And
We've
it's a
been
good,
at
great
it
question
40
and a great
years,
concern.
and,
Yeah.
it would be, I don't think you'd get a lot of votes out of
Yeah.
people for that.
No,
But I
it's, yeah.
applaud you for doing it, and obviously it was involved with all of us.
Right, yeah. It was a big project, but I think it's a worthy project. Yeah.
I have to leave to a planning board.
So you
Well, make sure
talked
you,
about-
speak on the 48 apartment buildings. They're coming before the planning board tonight.
Oh.
And that was my question, so the 48 apartment buildings that they're considering, can you explain how the impact fees to apartment buildings pay an impact fee? And how much is that, and how much can be used for capital costs?
I don't know, I think the planning board may have adopted a new fee structure for that, so we are getting more. I don't have that actual cost, we can certainly send that information to you. It is, but we absolutely can use whatever that is for capital projects or something like this.
For capital projects, but not improvements, right?
Yeah,
Expansion.
anything that has to do with expanding or,
Okay.
anything that has to do with growth. So, yeah, but it depends on when, I don't know when they're looking at building them,
So
so.
approximate numbers, Christie, the impact fees that were just approved by the planning board in December result in about $6,300. These are round numbers again, per single-family dwelling.
Right,
I think for apartments, we're looking at the high threes
okay.
to low fours. That's my recollection. So, yeah, if we're looking at, let's round it off and say it's 50 units and say we're getting $4,000 per unit,
Right.
yeah, that's gonna contribute to the overall.
Okay. And that goes only toward the school, or can the town also use those?
Yep, it's schools, impact fees.
It's
Okay.
schools, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So, any other questions?
Again, I certainly understand the concept of bundling the projects, but I mean, have you thought also about singularly tackling that one problem first, even though I know that it's quite a bargain on the bond, you're right? It's singularly attacking the one problem, probably first, with the idea that that's the neediest area. It's the most dire situation, and potentially doing something that way and taking one problem first and having the net tax impact be much less, and then readdressing the other one later.
I think the board has looked at lots of different, this has been a kind of a 2-year project from the initial in 2008 to looking at the original plan, which was to rebuild on Glen Lake. The problem with that was it was an expensive project and it did nothing for our elementary school, so that didn't include any renovations of those buildings. So we would have one sparkling brand new school and 2 schools falling down, and so the price tag went up significantly. So we've looked at lots of different options. One of the things the board didn't want to do was put both elementary schools as competing projects. I think I would somewhat disagree that Bartlett is more needy. I think both schools are needy. Both schools are out of space, both schools need renovations, both schools need additions, and so I think it became a quandary for the board of how do you put competing schools when they're both in need and they're both for our students. So I think it was an issue. I think they decided, at one point we talked about all 4 in one bond, and we did decide to separate them out into 2 different projects so that voters would have somewhat of a choice of that. So that it did go that direction, so.
Part of it is you have to do Maple Ave in order to do Bartlett, because there's no space to put it someplace else, we have to tear down the 1920 building. So we do have to do Maple first, so we can do Bartlett.
To transport the kids.
We have to have a place to put the kids for Bartlett, yes.
My opinion, and that makes sense after you describe it. My whole point is back to selling it.
Absolutely.
Trying to lighten the net tax impact for at least 2 or 3 years with the idea that, that's no guarantee that people will turn around and vote for the other one.
The other,
I know that's
right.
up to come, and this is not easy.
Yeah,
So-
they're all difficult decisions, and I would, I would say if anybody, either in the audience or are watching, is interested in getting a tour of any of our schools and seeing what we have, you can certainly call the SAU office, you can call the schools and ask. Any of us would be more than happy to take you through our schools to show you what we have, and what we're looking to renovate and add on, and to see the cramped spaces that our children are in. And we would be more than happy to do that as well, or talk further. Any other questions? That's my hope. I want to thank you all for coming on this great night. Drive home safely, and